Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So I've slacked a bit on Marvel in the past year. I skipped Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I skipped the odd TV show, but for the most part I've kept myself up to date. But Phase 4 was very, very disappointing as a whole, apart from a couple of projects. So you had to hope that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania could kickstart Phase 5, because this is the first film of the new phase. You know, I was just hoping this film could take the MCU by the balls and just bring it back to that, you know, high entertainment, fun storytelling. And with the inclusion of Kang the Conqueror in this film, I had hope. So was it good? No, it wasn't. Ant-Man Quantumania was, again, very disappointing, like many of the other Phase 4 films. It continues the trend that films like Love and Thunder and Multiverse of Madness had, where they are just messy, unfunny, and badly structured films. This film follows Ant-Man, the Wasp, Hank, Janet, and a newly casted Cassie as they get accidentally transported into the quantum realm, where they find Kang the Conqueror, who is trapped there. Now, we saw a variation of Kang in Loki Season 1. It was a very cool sort of sneak preview of what was to come in future projects, and in Loki Season 1, that variation of Kang mentions that there are worse versions of himself out there, and of course he means the Kang the Conqueror version. And that is the man we get here, and Kang was the only good thing about this film, in my opinion. He was charismatic, played really, really well by Jonathan Majors. It really felt like this man was giving his all in this role, and I loved what we got here. Every other character, however, was pretty awful. I would say Ant-Man and Janet were the only ones that were decent, and even then that was only half the time. Hank was cringy, Hope was just very uninteresting, and Cassie was just a very annoying addition in this film. I'm not sure why they recast, but regardless, her performance in general here was just really not good. I mean, she did what, you know, she had to do. She did her lines, but I didn't give a shit about her. I didn't care for a character. I found her annoying. And it's doubly annoying because she was very central to the plot here. You know, she was an important, I guess you'd say, plot device, because she was the one that supposedly created the device that managed to transport them all into the quantum realm, and I'm meant to believe that she could just make that shit. You know, it's like a side hustle. She's just making this. It's like, oh, look, I can just go into the quantum realm. You know, she's just done the most, like, profound, groundbreaking science in the history of Earth. And she's also the character in this film that could have died so many times. She is the character that is sort of the one that's getting threatened a lot, like, you know, we're going to kill her if you don't help us, Ant-Man. And it's just like, well, they could have killed her so many fucking times if they wanted to, and they just didn't. We also get another villain in this film, MODOK, who was honestly laughable, hard to take seriously in any way, with some of the worst lines and just moments in this film and in the MCU in general. Just a really, really shit character. I don't know if there's any people that are excited to see MODOK, but I would lower your expectations if you were excited. Talking of laughs, this is the MCU, so if they have the chance to throw in an unfunny joke that will compromise the line, the scene, or a character's likability, they will do it. And they did it here in this movie. I'll say my usual piece, that it was unfunny, it was forced, it was cringy, and it's at a level now where I don't even think a 7-year-old would find this sort of humour funny. Luckily, they didn't compromise Kang with this humour. They actually allowed his character, would you believe it, stay in character. One of the few Marvel characters that's ever been able to do that. You know, he didn't have to say any stupid jokes, and people didn't really say the stupid jokes to him on too many occasions. So for the most part, you could actually take his scene seriously and actually get immersed, which was nice, because for the rest of the movie you can't. I don't really understand the MCU's obsession with shitty humour. I've said this in pretty much everything I've ever reviewed MCU wise. I don't understand it for once. I just wish they'd make a show or movie that was actually 100% like gritty and grounded, rather than trying to just throw in these really throwaway lines that always compromise the scene. They're never usually well timed or well placed. They usually always fuck up the momentum of the scene or the character or the movie in general. The start and end of this film were definitely the worst parts, you know, Act 1 and Act 3, but the middle segment for me I thought was the strongest. While it still had a bit of a shitstorm going on, it was the strongest because we spent the most time with Kang at that point, and you get a lot of like just dialogue segments with him. You get to understand his intentions, and you also get to understand his strengths, and you really feel the stakes in that middle segment when he's like just talking to characters one-on-one. And that's the thing, I do like the idea of this film, the fact that Ant-Man stumbles across a powerful and feared man in Kang, but I do wish they had done it differently, because the way the story played out was just not it for me. It was not very effective. I'll mention how I wish it played out at the end of the video, because, you know, I'll just save that as a, because it is minor spoilers, but I don't really want to say it now. Now, this is a very visual movie, of course. It's all CG. You know, these actors were probably on blue or green screen the entire time they made this film. You know, it's a lot of CG, and visually I think it's pretty solid, to be fair. You know, for the most part in Phase 4 the CG was very questionable at times, but here I never really had any glaring CG things apart from maybe the odd character or two, but overall I think it looked pretty decent. However, the editing did throw me off a bit in this film. They do this thing where it cuts from one scene to a next, and it either feels like you've left the previous scene too early or entered the next scene too late. You know, on a few occasions I felt like we jumped to a scene and I felt like I'd missed like 30 to 60 seconds of the scene, and I felt like a bit had been cut. I'm not sure if this was again a movie that was meant to be longer and then they cut it up loads. It didn't feel like too much content was missing or like too much more needed to be fleshed out, but it just did feel like the editing was a bit off at times. You know, you would jump back to characters and they'd be in like a new location, a location that they weren't in the previous scene, and you just sort of be like, well, how did they get here? You know, it's not like I need a shit ton of information or like just loads of like scenes to show me how they got there, but it just felt like stuff was being cut. But really my gripes with this film remain with the inclusion of annoying characters that just weren't necessary here, with really poor writing, really poor humour, and as with Multiverse of Madness, a really poor execution of a potentially exciting story. On paper this sounds like fun, the trailers make it look like fun, but again the end product was not fun. I would give Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania a 5 out of 10, and I don't think I would ever rewatch this again. Maybe if I was a bit drunk or I was just doing a binge through, if I knew that better stuff was coming afterwards, maybe I would rewatch this, but right now, as it is, not very good. But yeah, in terms of spoilers, all I really wanted to say was that I just think they could have structured this film a little different. I think it would have been better if just like maybe only Ant-Man gets sucked into this quantum realm, and then he comes across Kang, and Kang maybe treats him nice and tries to fool him to help him so that they can both escape. You know, I think that would have worked well as a story if Kang is like almost playing Ant-Man for a fool to try and help him get out, and Ant-Man considers that this guy's like a nice guy and a friend and someone who's just stuck in the same situation as him, and then, you know, you could get Kang betraying Ant-Man at the end, and then you kind of have this whole setup for a new film with Kang because he's escaped, you know, and now he's a threat, and now Ant-Man realizes that. I think something like that would have been better, because they basically did that with Janet in this film anyway, where she meets Kang and he like woos her and makes her think that, you know, he's a good guy. So I think they could have played it out differently, because I think there was just too many characters here and it was hard to really feel like personal connection, like it was hero versus villain. It just felt like group of heroes, villain who's, you know, just sort of doing his thing and they're just in the way. But, you know, it is what it is. We got the film we got, and you just gotta hope that the MCU can fix up and actually make some decent shit for Phase 5, because once again they are slacking. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think about it. Bye bye.